All right, so this is how you destroy the competition, and this is why competition is for losers. So, how I came to understand this, I've been in a lot of sales positions while I was in my career, and for the most part, what I have come to understand is that most sales managers teach you to be competitive, right? Sales managers always teach you to be competitive because they actually want you striving to beat this person or beat that person, right? They always want you to kind of be like moving forward or chasing somebody down. And it makes sense from the perspective of the sales manager because how does a sales manager typically get paid? Typically, they get paid from having Johnny beat Jenny, right? Or Jenny beat Johnny. And however many sales the team makes is how I get paid, right? So for them, it makes sense that you want the whole team to be competitive because what you would never want is to have a team that's like, nah, we're okay, and then one all-star that like doubles or triples everybody else's sales, and no one can keep up with that person, right? So in that sense, you don't want to rely on one stream of income, right? So now, you as the salesperson or as the business person, you don't want to be in a competitive situation. Now, here's why. And I know that sounds backwards, right? But a competitive situation means I am chasing Jesse or Jenny, right? Because they are usually number one. And your thought process is, how can I beat Jesse or Jenny? And for me, the problem with that is that you are avoiding the most valuable part of your business. Now, how I even came to understand this, in one of my sales positions in the past, like long, long ago, I had been doing marketing for a while, and I had been in sales positions before, but I always was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm second, third, sometimes every blue moon I'm in first place, but I'm usually just kind of like teeter-tottering between first, second, and third. And what I came to understand after leaving sales for a little while, focusing on being in marketing, it made me realize this one thing was really the thing that was holding me back, is that I focused on how I could beat somebody else at their game. And it made me think about when I played sports back as, a student in middle school, high school, playing sports is almost now that I understand this, it's kind of a metaphor for success or for failure. And what I realized is I've been on some terrible teams and I've been on some really amazing teams where we were either winning number one or we were runner up or what have you. Right? And what I always came to understand is that or what I came to understand years later is that the teams that were the best teams, the teams that were unstoppable, were the teams that literally never, ever, ever thought about competition. And the teams that did well up until a certain point focused on one thing until they got to a point where they were like, okay, we got to be careful about this team, right? Because they got this or they got this person. And the teams that were terrible, we never had a game plan outside of trying to beat the other team, right? So what does that break down to? It breaks down to three different mentalities. One is the loser mentality, right? The loser mentality is a mentality of saying like, okay, well, how does Jenny do it? How is Jenny getting all this business in, right? And they're gonna sit and watch, and they're gonna say, man, you know what? I just wish I could do it like Jenny, right? That person, they're going to be in the middle of the pack. Sometimes they'll do okay, sometimes, but they're typically middle of the pack, right? Or they're just going to try to figure it out. They're just like, oh, okay, well, let me just walk out here and do stuff and make something happen, right? When I told my son this, I actually told him this a couple weeks ago. I used an analogy like a video game. A loser is the equivalent, if you play video games or if you've ever played video games, is the equivalent of somebody who's never played the video game before. And so all they do is they just grab the controller and they mash buttons. I don't know if you ever had like sisters or brothers that let you play the game with them and you don't know what you're doing, so you just press a lot of buttons as fast as you can to see if you can possibly try to win. And you usually lose. Every once in a while you might win a game, but you're usually going to lose. And that's the same thing, right? So I'm going to just say that loser is a button masher, right? A button masher is losing because they just don't have any skill, right? So then the next person is the competitor, right? This person, they have some skill, right? They're not just sitting there like, oh man, let me press as many buttons as possible. They have some skill. So their skill is more refined than a button masher. But, and here's the most important part, they still have a loser's mentality. And that's the hard part, is how do you get rid of the loser mentality? So what is the loser mentality? The loser mentality is 100% how a competitor and a loser think, which is, how is Jenny doing it? How is she doing it? But the difference is that now that you have skill, you think, I should use their map to get where they are. And that's the absolute wrong thing to do, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But a competitor will think, hey, you know what? Jenny is using cold email to get business, and she's crushing it. Maybe I should do that too, right? Or they might say, oh, Tommy, last month they were high rolling. Or, Luke's Plumbing down the street, they crushed it this year. And I want to, I always see their trucks out, so I'm going to do the same thing. This person thinks that by watching someone else do better than them and seeing what they do and modeling that they'll do just as well or better. And yeah, you might be able to keep up. You might be able to do well or just as well as this person. But realistically speaking, this person doesn't understand how to be dominant. All right? So what do I mean? So what is dominance, right? Dominance is obviously skill, right? It's important. Dominance is also mindset, right? Because they're not thinking the same way. But dominance is also a strategy. Okay, so here's what I mean. I want you to imagine being someone who is playing on the Bulls when Michael Jordan played, right? Or playing with LeBron right now. Right? Now, if you are just getting on the team, you don't know any plays, you're a button masher. You're just in the game and you're like, hey, let me shoot because nobody's here. Or let me pass because I see somebody down the court. You are not necessarily cognizant of the game within the game, but you are happy to be there. You're enthusiastic. You're doing the things that you need to do in your mind to make a difference in the game. And you might actually be a decent player. So you'll be middle of the pack or something like that. But you'll never be the number one option. Now, if you are on LeBron's team and let's say that you've been there for a couple of years, right? And now you're like, hey, you know what? I'm usually top one or two scorers. So you might be a D'Angelo Russell or a Anthony Davis type, right? If you don't follow basketball, they're like the second and third best players, depending on what game and what year you're looking at. But you might be the type of person who's like, hey, I can keep up with some of the best of them. And sometimes I end up being the top player of the game, or the top player of the month, or the week, or the season even. But you're just, for some reason, you're not pulling away, right? In my opinion, and this is there's nothing wrong with being a competitor if you are early in the game. Because here's the thing, it's better than being someone who doesn't get the understanding of the game, and we all kind of follow this trajectory, but some people and most people stop right here at competitors because that's where you in business, hey, I'm making good money, I'm doing okay, I'm happy with where I'm at. Um, but the reality of it is you can't be happy. And the reason why you can't be happy is because you don't have the most important part of this that makes it stressless. That's probably the best way I could say it. You're not stressed out because the game is still outside of you, right? When you're a dominant player, the game is internal. I'm not watching Jenny anymore, right? I saw Jenny has a move, right, that gets her open. And it made me realize, like, you know what? Jenny is really good at scoring with cold email, right? She's really good at getting sales with cold email. But I'm better, on stage. I'm better in person. I'm better on the phone. So maybe I use my move. Maybe I focus on doing the thing that I'm uniquely good at, right? Now, that is the strategy. The strategy is I am not the pawn. I'm not the king. I'm not the queen. I might be the knight. I move a certain way. And now that I understand that I move that way, how do I master my move? How do I master putting myself in the position to always be just hitting the mark every time, right? If you really think about dominant players, and if you're into basketball, you'll understand what I mean. If you think about Kareem. Kareem is known for what move? The skyhook, right? Shaq, Kobe, Jordan, all these people. Dennis Rodman even. Dennis Rodman is a dominant player because he was an incredible rebounder, defender, and he was short, fast, and his dominance was that he understood who he was as a player. And what I find in most businesses and most sales organizations, the most dominant player can't really train you to be dominant. They can't really, like, they could tell you everything. I could tell you, oh yeah, this is how you do it. This is what I do. And you won't be able to do it. You'll be able to do okay. But the reality of it is, I'm only giving you a way to try to emulate my move. You can't be AI because AI is AI. You can't be Jordan. The things that made their moves were unique to them. You might be able to try to mold yourself after them and still have a level of greatness, but you could never be them. And so this is the thing, and this is ultimately what I'm saying. A dominant player is going to approach the game not by trying to compete. I am not looking at anybody else's game. I'm trying to perfect my move, perfect my positioning, so that when I do my move, I am 100% going to have success. I may not hit every single shot, but I know that my success is going to be happening. And so all I have to do is understand, once I know my move, now it becomes a numbers game. And for some people, that looks different. For me, I'm a numbers guy. And so I have to use numbers. I have to think about things in a specific way to know, hey, if I do this, then I know that this is going to happen. Some people, there's a sales trainer out there right now. I can't use his stuff, but he's apparently taken over the internet. I'm not going to say his name, but he's got this, comb over type of a hairstyle, tall, handsome white guy, whatever. And he has this way of asking questions. And it works for him and a lot of the people like him. But I would never be able to do the things that he does. And the reason why, partially, is because I'm not that guy. I'm not the type of guy that's going to, hey, so, how do you feel if, this doesn't work out for you? What would you do? I could say it. But the reality of it is not everybody thinks the same way. If you see my negotiation video, you know that there are 4 personality types. And so if I'm speaking like that, it's going to work really well for somebody who is more relationship oriented, who's more of a feeler, who's more of a who thinks a certain way and who acts a certain way and who talks and communicates a certain way. But you have to learn you. You have to learn your move. And for some people, that is, hey, let me ask more probing questions. Let me ask you more about this. For some people, it's going to be, hey, I'm just going to get through the numbers. For some people, it's going to be, hey, let me make them feel at home. Let me make them, let me make some jokes. Let me make them see my charisma. For some people, it's going to be like, all right, well, let's go over the math. Let's figure out the A, B's, and C's of this deal. And so that's the thing. If you want to be dominant, the first thing you have to do is understand that you can't be dominant like somebody else. If you're trying to watch a dominant player and steal their moves, it's going to be extremely hard for you to ever approach what they do and be just as good, if not better than them, and go well above them. And so that's the thing. I don't want anybody to approach their sales or their business like, hey, how can I be number one? Because the reality of it is, being number one is not the goal. The goal is constant improvement. And that's what a dominant player does. I don't believe that Michael Jordan was in the gym practicing taking shots so that he could be number one. I believe that Michael Jordan was practicing shots so that when it came time to shoot, he wouldn't miss like he did last time, or he would miss less than he has missed over the last month or year. And if you are able to shift that thought and say, hey, how can I focus on my game so much that no one else's game matters? You'll become a dominant player. All right. So if you have had any struggles with any of this, I want you to tell me what it is that you have struggled with. Right. And if you have noticed that competitive people never pull away from the pack, leave a comment. Right. As a matter of fact, leave a like if you are the dominant player. All right, so this is Mike Malbrough. I'm signing off. Talk to y'all later.